Without further ado, I'd like to call upon the Prime Minister to the podium.
I know this is cheating, but before I start time, I'd like to just thank my wonderful partner, Sonyeong, who is one of the most brilliant people and minds in the world, and she will do a great job. All set? First thing I want to talk about is to explain to you what a sensation of pain is. We present to you three categories. Firstly, there is ordinary pain. That is to say, if you stub your toenail or if someone punches me in the face, that is pain. Secondly, there is suffering that comes from absence of something. That is to say, if you feel from loneliness or absence of partner, you feel emotional pain from that particular category. But crucially, the difference between the second and the third thing I'm just going to tell you is that the second thing, you can do something about it. The third thing is an existential pain. For example, the pain that comes from the idea of uncertainty, something that you can't do anything about it. There's something that, for example, the pain that comes from mortality, something that you can't do anything about. The unifying feature of these three categories of pain is that there is nothing you can do about it once it happened. You can't change the fact that you were punched by somebody and that pain doesn't exist. You can't do something especially about the existential pain that we present. Crucially, another note on the model is that, no thank you, we will not assume anything about this individual. What does that logically mean? It means that all arguments that we make can be generalizable to every person. The stance that we take is that all human beings should choose to live the life that we have, and therefore, that's the world that we envision. I'm going to make two arguments. Firstly, I'm going to explain to you why a sensation of pain blocks a truth-seeking person from reaching enlightenment. That is to say that you will not be smarter or know more about the world with a sensation of pain. And secondly, I'm going to explain to you why to become a less ethical person. Notably, in a world that we live in, we like to believe that we do moral things and truth-seeking things. The argument I'm making is that in the comparative, you are less likely to do those things. Firstly, I'm going to explain to you why a truth-seeking person will be damaged by a sensation of pain. We start from the premise that true beliefs about the world should motivate people to, for example, be truth-seeking. One way I want to talk about this is like intuitively true. I don't think anyone is going to contest it. But secondly, even if someone is going to test it, I'm going to provide a logical proof behind that. Because let's think about the converse, that false beliefs is something that you should aim for. But how do you know something is false? It means that you also know what is truth, right? What that particularly means is that in that instance, that you know and you choose to believe something that is fake, and therefore that is not a viable life choice to begin with. But if you didn't understand that, the rest of my speech is something that you can fully comprehend. The second thing that I want to say under this argument is that a sensation of pain zeroes you into an imaginary state of life. Because when you are punched in the face, you think about, what if I'm not punched in the face? When you feel emotional pain from any kind of, for example, loneliness, you imagine a life in the case that that loneliness does not exist. The best way to explain this argument is to analogize it to gravity. Gravity exists in the status quo, but the reason why it's particularly useful, gravity exists in the status quo, but it's hard to imagine an imaginary state of mind that gravity does not exist, and we think that actually allows you to be zeroed in that pain. Why is this particularly harmful? Because it makes you think about blissful thinking. Instead of trying to have a realistic idea of what the world is, you think of, maybe, what about a world in which there is no religion? About a world where there is no pain? That kind of ideology makes you even more ideal and make you less seeking the truth. You choose not to know about particular parts of life because learning about, for instance, the refugee crisis is an incredibly disheartening thing. It's an incredibly painful thing. And we say that's something that makes you go away in that particular instance. But the more important argument that I want to present to you is that it stops you being an ethical person. We are not advancing a particular theory of ethics or a particular theory of morality. But what we want to talk about in all morality is that morality imposes obligations on you. If you want to be a moral person, there are things you can do and there are things you can't do. There are things that you should do because you want to be a moral person, like, for example, save another human's life. It is inherently normative. What we say is a sensation of pain inhibits the execution or the will to execute particular kind of moral duties in two particular ways. Firstly, disutility literally poisons your brain. Neurologically speaking, if you talk to a farmer who is suffering from an idea of uncertainty, let's say in Bangladesh, that person acts in a particularly different way as opposed to when that person has had a huge amount of harvest because they are free from that sensation of pain. It means that there is something that is epistemologically unknowable. What does that mean? You can't know how much pain I receive. What does that mean? It means that my center, my moral universe around me, because the most immediate sensation that I feel is pain. I don't know, even if you cringe, I don't know how much pain you feel, but I exactly know how much pain I feel, so therefore the self-centered mindset of a human being makes you believe that that disutility is something that you care about the most. We think that's particularly harmful. Secondly, it creates akrasia, which is the weakening of the will. What we say is that every time you sense some kind of disutility in, for example, let's say donating to Goodwill Foundation, or some kind of disutility in trying to save the world, that makes you less likely to take that action because that sensation of pain inhibits your very base moral ideology. That's what's up.
If the relativity of sensation is what bothers you, would you prefer a world where all emotions, like happiness, which is also relative and uncalculatable, is also eradicated?
No. So the basic idea of that is that happiness is something that exists not in relation of pain, and I think I've made that point very clear. Like, what you're relying on is a very intuitive idea that doesn't have a logical basis in a world where sensation of pain can be eliminated, right? Because the premise of this debate is that that's something we can do. If you think that happiness cannot exist without pain, then you are saying that the premise of this debate is false to begin with. Why is this particularly harmful? It reduces empathy to some extent and leads to moral harm. Because it's harder for you to summon the will of imagining another person's state of life because that is a painful thing to do. It reduces also your objectivity as an ethical person because you feel centered about the particular kind of disutility and pain that you feel in your life. When you close your eyes and imagine a world, you can see a lot of different things. The point of that is, your inside moral universe is unexpoundedly infinite. When pain kind of drops, its kind of poisonous drops into that universe, it makes it much harder for you to imagine what else exists outside of my moral universe. It hurts you in particular ways that I think is something worth proposing.
The speaker spoke for 6 minutes and 49 seconds. I thank the Prime Minister. Now I'd like to call upon the Leader of Opposition to podium.
I was once told that life is an actor debate. And in my life as a debater, the only reason I've continued to persevere outside of all the losses that I made, outside of all the finals I did not enter, is because the pain that I've continued to feel gave me a reason that in order for me to overcome this, I must find solace in working hard, and I must find solace in overcoming that pain so that one day when I truly enter a grand finals, that pain could possibly be reduced and be replaced instead with happiness. Opening opposition will argue why, firstly, what does pain do to you as an individual, and we think it is a profound and powerful emotion, and secondly, how does that make you relate to the rest of the world? But before that, 2 points of responses to the Prime Minister. The first thing Prime Minister says is that if you experience pain, you become less of a truth-seeking person. So here's the thing, we know what's right, we know what's wrong, but why do we care? Why do we care that it is wrong and you need to not hurt someone? Why do we care that it is right for you to help someone? It's because intuitively and in our instincts, we get to feel the emotion that empowers the fact that if I do not act on the emotion of me feeling pain, I'm less likely to care or want to stop someone from being hurt. The fact that when someone falls down the street and instinctively you feel you want to go out and help that person is because you too could possibly feel that same amount of pain, and if you do not attempt to help that person, we think that's when people are less likely to do that, because if you don't, even if something is right or wrong, the reason you wouldn't care about it is because if you do not feel that emotion, how are you going to connect and understand that that help is important for you to extend to another person? But secondly, they said, oh, you enter this imaginary state of life. If you do not feel pain and you think everything about the world is fine, that's when we think you enter into an imaginary state of life. Imagine the life of an African American person who, despite the oppression and despite the inequality, realizes that even if something is wrong, I don't need to care about it because it doesn't affect me, because it doesn't feel important to me. Just because you do not feel pain, that does not make something less wrong or more right. Secondly, it stops you from being an ethical person. Look at it. Look at the way we work. If I want to be objective, and the only reason I'm going to decide to be objective, the only reason scientists decide to care about objectivity is because they know and understand that the investment they do and put into research ensures that they allow themselves to act upon this. And this comes from the fuel of emotions, that when they see a person being deprived in Nigeria from food, it's because they feel the pain of that person not having that food in itself. That fuels the objectivity or helps that person use that empathy so that they can constructively act onto wanting to help other individuals. So we think that's when you empower empathy even more. We don't think it makes you a more self-centered person, rather it allows you to understand and connect with other individuals, because the imagery of a refugee or a person being shorn out through the shores means that you need to act upon it because you do not want to see yourself in that situation. Go ahead.
If you act on your sensation of pain and what other people imagine that to be, it is harder for you to imagine the pain of someone who is very different than you, as opposed to someone who is very similar than you, which means that you ultimately lead to an unethical outcome at the end of the day.
So in your world, why would a person who's extremely different from you ever be able to choose to act on whether something is right or wrong? The understanding of the way we connect to human beings goes beyond our descriptive features or artifacts or the things that make us geographically different. Just because I'm a Malaysian and I'm not someone who's suffering the consequences of the Syrian war does not mean I cannot empathize or sympathize to make a donation to help the cause in order to alleviate some problems of these individuals. In their world, I think it's more likely that the moment you don't share any commonality at all, even if something is right or wrong, means you're less likely to act upon it. But firstly, why do we think, what is the importance of pain to an individual? Understand that the experience to pain in comparison to happiness is of a lower barrier. That means immediately if someone says something insulting to you, or immediately someone punches you in the face, you can feel the effects of it. The reason why this is important is because it gives you the awareness on how to act or choose to reshape the way things exist around you. For example, if an African American person understands the continuous pain of being discriminated, the fact that Rosa Parks was able to decide not to give up her seat comes from many years of facing the pain of being discriminated as an individual. We think that forces her to make a decision that if I do not act or use this pain in order to change the circumstances around me, I am unable to relieve myself of that pain. The fact that human beings are naturally self-preservatory means that that pain associates itself with the way in which you act to reconstruct the circumstances that you have around you. That's why we think individuals who suffer from lots and lots of mental illnesses, the fact that they may suffer from potential depression or anxiety, that understanding of that, or that stigmatization that we place onto these individuals, means that they're more likely to act on it, or more likely to decide that maybe I want to seek solidarity with another person, maybe I want to seek sympathy with another person. But even in the case they choose not to act upon it, we think that that pain makes them understand that that is what makes them human. And we think that innate feature of the way pain works for individuals makes us more vulnerable, and as a result that makes us more empathetic towards the situations around us. Because we think the comparative is happiness isn't enough for you to do something. Because we understand that even if government does not propose a world where everyone has large amounts of happiness, we think the alternative then is that you do not feel any amounts of emotion. We think that's a world we do not want to live in. Why? Because for these individuals, you do not feel any emotion, or you feel large amounts of happiness. We think that's when you're likely to enter into a slumber, to not question the surroundings around you. That's when you're unlikely to determine that maybe the oppression of another person onto me is something I should act upon, because these people are individuals who will be entrenched in these positions. And we think that's when you get privileged individuals who entrench you in these positions, more arsenal for them to continue doing so, because you don't feel any pain, or you do not feel any reaction to want to get yourselves out of it. The conclusion to this argument is that the slumber of happiness means people will continuously live monotonous lives and not change the way environments act around them. Because of how environments are so volatile to us, we need to then move beyond that and change the way this works. But how finally does that mean we relate to other individuals? Understand that this can be examined in three ways. Firstly, if you look at the causes we take up, the fact that women fought for, the suffragists fought for equal voting rights, this came from the continuous feeling of pain of being excluded as a voting class, or being excluded as a as an actor that can be viewed equally in making decisions or equally in wanting to receive pain. We think these are causes that bind people together and collectively mobilize them as individuals who want to act to make certain decisions so that they can benefit out of these things. We think many successes we've had for many women and for many minorities has come because that collective pain has constructively mobilized them to act upon it and to bring forward changes for these communities. We think the absence of that pain means that for these individuals it's easier for them to continuously be entrenched in that system, because all forms of privileges that act upon them will have no reason for them to shift the way they act upon these individuals. And we think that's particularly harmful because it's an objective in itself, as what opening government contends. Just because something is right or wrong does not mean you are likely to act on it if you do not feel the pain that makes you realize some things need to be changed in this world, and otherwise it will remain the same.
Speaker spoke for 7 minutes and 12 seconds. I thank the Leader of Opposition. Now I'd like to call upon the Deputy Prime Minister to speak.
Thank you, Junpyo. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, panel, ladies and gentlemen. We think that literally what all societies for the entire history of mankind have been doing is to eradicate pain, is to maximize utility of humankind. That is why we have welfare policies. That is why we try to eradicate poverty, the most basic form of oppression and pain. That is why we try to end civil wars. We think we spend so much economic and emotional resources in eradicating pain, and that itself, independently, is a compelling, very intuitive and obvious reason to just vote for government side, when the world does not exist with pain. But because this debate is about philosophy, we're going to focus more, and we think the actual debate should happen more, on what the individual should do, what the calculation of the individual should do. Which is why Junpyo's analysis, which was very conveniently brushed up and simplified by opposition side, is incredibly important. Because we talked about the nature of pain, in essence, is not only immediate and inherently subjective because it centers around your world of disutility, but we also tell you that it's exaggerated. The terms like loss averse or like risk averse means that I'm afraid losing more than I'm afraid of not winning. We tell you, Mr. Speaker, because of those innate characteristics of the nature of pain. Insofar as individuals are just a culmination of their decisions, we tell you that we're going to bring you the correct decisions, because pain clogs decision making insofar as the world and individuals is about fulfilling their aspirations. We tell you that pain innately prevents individuals from fulfilling those aspirations and fulfilling the aspirations that we should be fulfilling as moral individuals. I'm going to ask one important question in this speech. It's going to be about whether pain is more debilitating or enabling. What we get from opposition side is basically, look, we already know what is right or wrong, but we need to care. And what pain does is it allows you to feel empathy and to actually care. So several rebuttals. Number one, because we told you, Mr. Speaker, our entire case was that pain actually prevents us from seeking the actual truth. It relies a lot upon imagination. We're fretting over things that I cannot change, regretting over things that I cannot change, and it's also very self-centered. So the fact that we know what is right and wrong itself is not true. But secondly, we tell you, Mr. Speaker, that they've never proven to us why empathy can't really happen without pain. We tell you that you can empathize with joy, for instance. We can tell you that, look, I feel like it's good to have an education, and I want others to feel that joy too. They've never provided a single warrant why we can only have empathy through pain. But third of all, we tell you, Mr. Speaker, that because pain exists, there's other reasons for like really bad actors and really perverse incentives to say like, look, like I'm feeling pain, I want you to feel pain too. You know that famous joke where like if you give a sister a toy and you ask her older sibling, what do you want to do? And she says, I want you to break her toy because I don't have that toy. We tell you, Mr. Speaker, that there are people who just because I feel pain, want you to feel pain too. And that creates really, really bad results. So we tell you that pain independently can be a really bad source for caring. But secondly, they talk us about like how pain is what really motivates us to act. Well, first of all, they also assume that all kind of motivation is negative. Because we tell you that there can be positive motivations too. Like, look, I want to earn more money, not because I felt the pain of not having money since like, I'm like what, in my 20s and my mom and dad like provided me with money I need. But I want to earn money as a positive motivation. We think that the entire premise is really, really ridiculous. Because we tell you that individuals try to reach attainable goals instead of like trying to just reach the baseline minimum zero. And that's a huge assumption that they really have to go up in this debate. But secondly, we tell you that you don't have to be motivated by emotion itself. You don't need to have like positive joy to motivate you as well after this point. We tell you that, for instance, people try to maximize utility in the world and in themselves because that's rational, because it's logical, because that's the correct thing to do by using their brain's capacity, which is so much better because you can actually correct for that. But we can look at like, you can type trial and error process and says, look, that didn't like work out well, so I'm going to do another thing. You don't have to have like emotional pain, emotional fear, emotional joy as your primary source of motivation. In fact, that's really bad because it's really arbitrary. Like one time you care about these people in Syria and the next day you don't because somehow like your life seems more shitty now too. Sorry for my language. We tell you, Mr. Speaker, that it's better to in fact have like these rational, for instance, institutions, laws, or rules to conduct actions. And there are plenty more alternatives to actually enable the action that they're carrying out. Before I move on to my next rebuttal, sure.
Can you tell us how sustainable is joy, or how far is joy going to get you to achieving possible change if at some point joy requires you to accept the reality of things?
Okay, so that is actually my next rebuttal. So like we actually got in the POI that like, look, joy isn't meaningful if you don't have pain. And like you said, like, but joy has its limits. So first of all, like, well, even in your best case scenario, even if we acknowledge that joy is meaningless without pain, or even if we acknowledge the inherent limits to joy, we'd prefer a world in which individuals are neutral with no pain and no joy, instead of the status quo in which excruciating amount of pain, and I don't think they really understand the magnitude of the pain that currently exists in this world, exists, but not only exists, but it disproportionately exists and persists. The pain and excruciating pain that exists in the world is balanced in a very is balanced in which people who started off poor, who started off with poor nutrition, who started off without an education, is amplified that pain, and we don't really prefer that status quo. We're happy to have like neutral individuals without joy or without pain. But secondly, even if that's not persuasive, we think that joy itself can be perceived completely independently of pain, especially for the most basic and thus the most important joys of life. Why? Because that's innate to human nature. Because for instance, like the inexplicable joy of giving birth to your baby doesn't come because you have experienced the pain of not having given birth to a baby, because you haven't experienced that before. Or the inexplicable joy of reading a book and being enlightened doesn't come from the fact that you actually experienced the pain of not having read a book and being enlightened. So we tell you that the most basic joys that are innate to human nature can actually happen without the pain that they so want in their world. I am so happy to propose.
I thank the Deputy Prime Minister for her speech. Now I'd like to call upon the Deputy Leader of Opposition to come.
This debate means a lot to me. I used to be quite depressing. Probably will continue to still be depressing after this debate. But the point is this, that many people in my life encourage me to become better as a person, and it's only with the pain that I go through and I have to escape this form of pain that drives me to become a better person in the future. I don't think any of this is available and all of it is absent inside government's world. Because if we don't feel pain, there's no need to escape this pain. And this is the biggest tragedy, not only to human conscience, but human race as well. And Dave has given you a lot of reasons why that's true, that the way we feel about things personally affect the way we want to treat and sympathize the world. I'd like to engage with a premise that came out from the second speaker of government. That's very important. I'll take out the speaker before me first. That I feel in general, if they claim that people will be more rational as a result of emotions being there to motivate you, and doesn't necessary to become more rational inside government's world, I don't think this is true, because in general, people do things inside government's world to seek more joy. All the actions that they do to seek rationality is in terms and in line with only if they find joy. This means that you neglect actions that reduce other people's form of pain, meaning your ability to be more rational, to be more charitable to people who are suffering on the ground is far reduced, because the only thing that incentivizes you to act rationally is what benefits you. This means more money. This could mean like winning more debate tournaments as long in corrupt ways perhaps, I don't know, like as long as you feel happy about it, not in the absence or existence of eradicating pain of someone else. And this is the biggest flaw that comes to the human conscience on side government's world. But secondly, the more perverse incentives that come out from side government leads to a few things, that you're only allowed to benefit as a result of your joy. So I don't think you take into consideration people's pain, and you probably wouldn't mind if people felt more pain as a consequence of your actions. This is a very perverse way to approach humanity as well. About giving birth and like this sort of joys that you can seek out as well, I think many times you actually feel more positive and you feel an attraction to many things only if you've gone through pain about it. I think a mother's pain at conception or giving birth to a child is one that's so sentimental, and is the only thing that sometimes attaches you to the kid at most. That I went through a lot for this kid and I must protect this kid with all my life. This is all absent if you only want to seek joys with a kid, and you probably could dump that kid at any point. It doesn't give you joy anymore because you don't feel anything that is in line with the pain that it could go through attached to your conscience as well. I'll talk to you about one argument about how we lose altruistic forms of happiness. But before that, I actually want to go through like in more meta issues of what this discussion on opening house was like. So I want to posit that side opening government is pretty pessimistic and pretty short term. Even for guys it's pretty depressing like me, I can identify this for a few reasons. Because mentally, we correct ourselves all the time in times of pain. What does this mean? You can get stronger as a result of many things, and I think Dave told you a lot of reasons why we can do this. But secondly, I think it's people turn less ideal in their world, because they don't need to be ideal anymore if they don't suffer pain about it. I think a lot of social constructs and conceptions about idealistic worlds revolve around how do we best maximize utility, or how do we reduce pain in general as a net. I think there's no need to reduce net general pain as a result of their policy, as a result of the way they like to approach this principle as well. I think there's only a need to be ideal if you must correct something that's wrong in the world and your consciousness prompts you to correct that bad thing that goes on in the world as well. Let's move on. So I feel that generally, do you actually end up helping only people who are similar as to you? I think not really, because you relate to many people on a humanitarian level and must help them, not be hungry and die of starvation. But even if you only help people who are similar to you, I think it's more preferable than a world where you don't help anyone who's in pain, because you can't understand that pain that they're going through as well. But more importantly, you lose that meaning to life as well. Because some people, even if they stay depressed, I think it's necessary to set an example to other people about how you should live your life, and maybe there's a way out of this. It's so important and intrinsic to the human culture and society that we have examples out in the world. In comparison, I'll posit that the joy that they get on their side is only temporary for a few reasons. Because they accept reality faster according to their premise as well. The faster you accept that reality, the less need for you to stay in that joy and revel in the joy of making finals, which is probably what me and Dave will do after this round. But anyway, the point is this: we're really happy, but if we remove pain from it, I think we won't feel that happy for very long. And there's a harm that happens to people's consciousness as well. I think that the analysis about people wanting to mess each other up and make each other feel pain is just cruel. I don't know what sister you have, but mine is fine. But maybe it could be a result of just people not having enough happiness, sympathy, or empathy in this world. And that turns worse, and more sisters will break my toys in that world if this were to exist as well. Before that, I'd like to take, which one you didn't take? Closing, yeah.
Okay. So you see, not every debater is going to end up getting into an open final. You seem to presume that the happiness that you get as a result will outweigh the sadness. But what if you never actually reach the goal of the happiness that you actually want?
Oh, it's fine. Yeah, I've been there for quite a while actually. So I actually feel really happy about giving good speeches. Like 2 years ago when I kept losing rounds, I didn't know why. Like I would just feel happy after giving good speech. People would tell me, you didn't even break, but I would just feel so happy that I got out of 6 rounds, get bullied by top rooms, and I still get up somewhere. This is the value that's only available if I feel pain in this world. I'll talk to you about why losing altruistic forms of happiness is something that we can't afford in this world, and as a result of this policy. Many people gain happiness through charity or doing good deeds, through contributing back to society, being benevolent, right? And there's a need for us to feel likened to humanity's attachment as a result of it. It's important so that we interact with these benevolent emotions that are intrinsic within us that allow us to fulfill our sense of belonging in this world. If we don't have this sense of belonging in this world, I think you're out of order. What happens is that we lose all this value when people who feel pain are undervalued as a result of this. That there's no real priority or harm to my personal conscience and belief when we see people dying, starving on these streets. This is a good example of why we debate, to solve people's problems of the sympathies that we do align ourselves in a humanitarian way with them. I think more people stay in desolate positions as a result of this, and we will just be complicit with the world lying down in trash and all the ravaged wars that we've gone through and not feel any sympathy as a result.
The speaker spoke for 7 minutes and 30 seconds. I thank the Deputy Leader of Opposition. Now to open up the back half, inviting the Member of Government.
Junpil did this, so I have to do as well. Shermaine, thanks for bringing me the joy in my life that tides me over my pain. You are brilliant and amazing. I could not have gone here without you. Thank you. Okay, I want to be a little bit less abstract and spend less time talking about morality in this debate and focus this debate more on the personal experience of the individual, who after all is an actor of the debate. I think most people are selfish. That is the most important thing. But before that, some clarification of what we stand for and a reframing of how we think about pain and joy in this debate. We think that in this debate, the difference between utility and subjective experience is the difference between a measurable, objective sense of utile or disutile like things in the world, and the difference between joy and pain is the subjective experience of those utile or disutile things. This is important. It means that people can recognize when they are worse off. So, in our world, where people do not feel pain, i.e. they do not have the subjective experience of this utility, they still know when their situation is suboptimal. They still know that they are worse off than a person who is more privileged than them, and they can still do things to want to better themselves, either simply because people generally chase utility and preserve themselves, as these guys point out correctly, or to choose the marginal increase in subjective experience that comes with also feeling joy when you achieve what you do. That is the difference between utility and the subjective experience of utility. The comparative on our side then is that when people, instead of people feeling sad or destroyed, they feel a vague sense of disappointment. So this may be hard to understand because all of us feel sadness. But if you think about it, this is like a person who feels sadness more severely, like a depressive, a person in that instance, when they are faced with a debilitating situation, likely feels a significant degree of subjective experience, vs us, who just feel like a small degree of pain and are able to move on with life. Okay, I've not timed my speech, so if someone can give me a timer, that would be really nice. Okay, first thing I want to talk about is to deal with this morality clash, and I'll talk about why empathy is like a bad metric or like a bad way to build morality, and why a world without subjective experience of pain is a superior one, upon which we can begin to build a truly objective morality. Next, I want to talk about pain being debilitating as opposed to being motivating. Then about pain and decision making, and finally about pain and fracturing of identity, which we think is the worst thing that can happen to an individual. Firstly, on morality. These guys say pain with it, empathy comes from pain, that you need to be able to see the pain of others in order to care about them. Firstly, as opening government rightly points out, you probably prioritize your own pain more than others. You prioritize the pain of people who are like you more than others. And I think these are good reasons why empathy is a bad metric upon which to build some degree of morality. But what these guys miss out, opening government also ignores, is the potential to build a different kind of more objective, more correct morality in the absence of empathy. When you don't think about a morality as based upon your selfish decision to care for someone, but on something that is different. So, note that many criticisms to utilitarianism, or the inability to apply utilitarianism correctly, come from, firstly, the existence of pain, because it damages our ability to calculate utility. Because each person's subjective experience of this utility is different, then therefore you can't calculate what is the most useful or at least this useful outcome for each person. In a world where that subjective experience did not exist, then you could objectively or begin to objectively assess what is the most useful outcome for the world. That will be the foundation of a morality in our world. We recognize that obviously happiness poses a similar problem for this, but we think that's less important, because in the world with the absence of pain, we recognize that in a world with the presence of pain, recognize that humans have a premium towards avoiding that pain, and they think that avoiding that pain is more important than thinking about happiness. We simply think that if happiness is a bonus upon useful outcomes, we're happy to leave that out of an objective moral standard. We still think that leaves a moral standard that is good for most people, because people are now not harmed and generally get useful outcomes. That is the way in which we conceptualize morality in a superior fashion. Next, on pain being motivating or debilitating. The material we get out of this side says pain is motivating. I think that is masochistic. If the reason you are in debating is because you've suffered lots and lots of pain because of your debating career, and then you end up on the final and you're like, oh my god, I'm so relieved, that is a bad reason for you to continue debating. But more importantly, I think the potential motivating factors of pain are outweighed by the fact that pain is often debilitating instead. And the fact that you are able to overcome those debilitating factors is not a reason why pain was motivating in the instance. I don't think pain motivates, because at the point at which you have overcome the pain, often that pain is reflexive, it can be forgotten, you are chasing the dream of being in a grand final because of the youthful benefits it brings to you and the positive experience it brings to you, not because it's not directly connected to the negative subjective experience you had before. Instead, pain is debilitating and prevents movement. Most of the time when you are experiencing pain, you cannot do anything. You feel like you are just in a bad state. That's why often people need to be in a situation of comfort, safety, or validation, all of which help people to cope with that pain before they can begin to move forward and actually get the things that they want, that they deem to be of utility to them, or that society deems to be useful. Before I go on, yes.
So why can't pain be decided individually based on my own experiences? I don't think I have to win a debate finals, but if whatever makes me happy, why isn't that just enough?
That is irrelevant to this debate.
You're here.
That's my response to that POI. But also note that, just on morality as well, also note that their system of morality, if it's predicated on pain being the measuring stick, then a world without pain is just a world without bad outcomes in their world. But back to what I was saying. Okay, two things that are also bad about pain. One is infectious, which is to say, in a way that all feelings are, if you are in pain, it is likely that people will have to care for you, or that people, because they are empathetic, will feel your pain as well. So there's third-party harm involved. But also, the vast gap between joy and pain in a world where pain exists and a world where pain is felt more intensely than joy means that the people are likely to pursue fleeting joys even if they are unlikely to occur. See, for example, the abused partner who continually goes back to their partner just in the desire to relive that one moment of happiness. In a world where you do not feel those negative experiences, you can correctly assess that that joy is not worth it because it's incredibly unlikely for you to achieve. People will make better decisions without the cloud of pain in their faces. More to that though, on identity fracture. As an individual, one of the worst things for you to be able to experience is for you to hate yourself. It's for you to deny the basis of your own experience. That's why we recognize that harming others is wrong and bad, but we often see suicide as the most tragic or sad thing of all. Recognize the way in which individuals cope with pain often involve them compartmentalizing away parts of themselves that they see to have experienced that pain. Individuals who have suffered significant trauma, suffer from PTSD, where they see the parts of themselves who have suffered that pain or caused that pain as evil, as something that's not deserving to be part of themselves. We think the worst thing an individual can be in this world is to be self-loathing, is to hate your aspects of yourself as a person, is to even deny the own validity of existence. For all these reasons, I am so proud to propose.
Two questions that closing opposition is going to exclusively provide to you. Number one, what makes a human being a human being? What is it that we say when somebody's human-like, and why is pain a prerequisite for that? Number two, if all sides, like 3 teams, ran the negative case, but nobody actually talked about the real ultimate goal of either side, in other words, which side brings better qualitative happiness, better appreciation of happiness, as well as the liberation of human individuals. Ultimately, what team actually better achieved that goal? We think that closing opposition will provide to you exclusively through 3 levels. Number one, we're going to talk about why happiness comes on relative levels and why pain is a prerequisite to actually have quality appreciation of happiness. Secondly, we're going to tell you why human progress happens better on our side, why this garners much more better competition as well as better decision-making processes. Number 3, we're also going to tell you a unique angle coming from us, why things like regret and retribution better happens, and further better deterrence on crime and punishment at least happens better on our side than them, which dysfunctionally happens. But before that, sure. Let's engage a little bit with OG. OG talked about this philosophical, like, I don't care about the raw reality of these, layman kind of a theoretical framework, but let's engage with that. Number one, I think that, what if I'm not like in this state of pain and we don't know anything? Number one, we tell you, Socrates Aporia, so let's be pedantic and tell you, a state of not knowing comes obviously with pain, and we think that that pain is what actually drives people to be more competitive, to actually learn to know. When you're shamed so much that you are a horribly, horribly stupid person, that's what makes you work, read up articles, and basically be better. We think that's fine. But secondly, they basically castrated raw reality and said that, we're going to only talk about logical world, no actual feelings. But empirical evidence of pain is exactly what fills in that theoretical framework and what actually precedes any theory. That is the evidence, for instance, in case of oppression on either, poverty or social minorities in all cases, right? Opening opposition briefly dealt with that, but we're going to further introduce to you why this better happens under our model, even empathy, right? But first of all, let's move on to the appreciation of human happiness. All of our engagements are going to be incorporated within our cases. Number one, appreciation of happiness. Massacre A, we think that happiness, it comes on relative levels. What do you mean by this? So on their side, it's either one of the two things. Either you completely live in this very, very steady state of mind where it's okay, you don't feel pain, but you're not debilitating depression, but at the same time you don't feel that much joy. Because why is this? We think that there's a severe difference, for instance, when you are starving, when you are you didn't have anything to eat, that you have to resort to little cheap 701 kimbap and stuff like that. Compared to that, we think that we would rather live in a world where people are able to appreciate pizza when they had to spend months trying to come up with these chips on their table, compared to their world where it's okay, every day's a pizza party, but sometimes you have a better expensive pizza. What appreciation do you get if you were to live in that world? We think that better compared to happiness comes on that level. Happiness is not going to be today we're going to have minus 100 happiness compared to 200 happiness. We think it's about feelings and appreciations, qualitative and subjective experiences of the individuals. That happens much better on our side. But on the second level, B is this. It's a value comparison, man. So when do we actually garner better happiness? Even in sports, have you gone through a marathon? it gives you so much pain. Like you gotta run and you're breathtaking and then so much obstacles and then like runner's high. So you get that, right? In other words, only when you go through so much pain that it just blows your mind out can you actually appreciate the ecstasy and the happiness and this sense of achievement. And that's a direct engagement to whatever your depression idea, because we think that yes, it's true. Some people have like debilitating depressions and stuff like that. But when you actually have, for if it's like talking about disease, then we really need medicines, and we think that we have to normalize the whole culture that we slash off depression as something like a disease that's infectious. But we think that on the other hand, we're talking on like ordinary people. This is exactly what's better, because we think that I pull an night over, and then I think like I'm not going to finish this assignment, I'm going to get an F, and I torture myself. We think that that's still a better motivator because it's compensated by that sense of achievement that comes after when I get an A+. In other words, Mr. Speaker, we think that the more pain you have, the greater the happiness that you receive on your side, right? The second is this. We think that if we take that into consideration, that leads on to our second extension of human progress. And this is direct engagement to CG. No, sit down, sir. We tell you, we think that even in terms of utility and calculus, why do we provide a better decision-making process compared to them? Because they seem to forget that people make best decisions when they look at their past mistakes, Like when you, for instance, shame and punishment are sometimes the best ways of best ways for you to actually look at things. For instance, we look at past precedents of war. We look at past precedents of sending people to the gas chamber, and you actually look at the photos of people dead. That's when you realize this is a horrible decision that we don't want to make. And if you can't cry when you see these photos, which is basically their whole OG case that, like rich kids can't sympathize, we think that is exactly the problem that's going to be amplified on your case. Because that's the model we're going to see when we see rich kids saying like, I don't feel anything when I read literature, I don't feel anything when I read up on poor people. So what sort of empathy happens on your level? At least we get to imagine, or if we can't imagine, we say, oh my gosh, I cannot even imagine what they went through, and that's the basis of empathy, the mechanism that the opening opposition lacked in this debate. But secondly, that's why we think that decision-making processes are much better. But on the second level, why much better human progress? Because we tell you, we think that basically, even when it comes to human progresses, like for instance, coming with refrigerators and air conditioners, and when you feel that I cannot, stand this humidity and the hot weather, that's when you realize that you can actually compete and achieve the better human progress. That's the motivator and the creative positive case that only came from CG, but CG. Sorry, CO, CG.
So your extension seems to be to say that the highs are worth the lows, but they're not, because the highs just tend to be a bonus, whereas the sadness and lows often tend to leave you with lasting objective harms when you do bad things to cope with those lows.
No, I don't think so. We think that the reason why people learn and can liberate themselves is when they realize that we are mortal, we're going to be struggling and be trapped in pain, but we still are human beings who are going to fight back, and while alarming, like Sisyphus, we're still going to struggle and get to the ultimate goal. We don't think that that's even relevant. But thirdly is this. We basically tell you like human competition to end that conclusion. We think that the reason why human competition is extremely important, is happening better on our side, is because we basically live the lives of the people as well. We think that even in case of depression, like only when you feel the sadness and be scarred by like love, that's when you can come up with poems and art and culture that lifts humanity. Only with the collective identity and the common characters that predicates upon pain, that all of us feel pain as human beings. That's the like exclusive benefit that comes from actually identifying yourself as somebody who can feel pain. But thirdly is this. More importantly, we tell you that shame and punishment, which is the core essence of the outcome of retribution and regret, only happens under our model. The reason why psychopaths go around killing around people is because they don't feel the pain even when they kill others. We think that there's inherent harm on that. But even in the case where people, don't feel anything, we think that in a marginally comparative world, we think that better regret happens because now you get to morally regret. Now you get to imagine what retribution is going to be like. That's when you feel like, oh, this is direct harm on me. So even in terms of social, security, we think that this is a much better world. Madam Speaker, Mr. Speaker, we want to generally live in a world where human beings are liberated. We think that that comes with much pain and acknowledging of pain. For all of those reasons, closing opposition wins this debate.
For 7 minutes and 36 seconds, I thank the member of opposition. Now calling upon the last speaker of the government side, Government Whip Speaker.
The entirety of human existence
existence has been lived under a dictatorship where individuals are forced to live with the inescapable reality of pain. We promote a world in which we are able to escape those particular shackles and tell ourselves that we can only look for happiness in a world in which the worst of humanity is now eradicated. I want to agree with closing opposition about this idea of qualitative happiness, but I really can't. Because I think the first thing you need to note is this, that the entire premise of the idea that higher highs is somehow a good thing is not necessarily a good thing. And the reason why is because there is no objective harm in not knowing something. So in a world in which you do not know of a higher high, there is no actual harm in you not ever being able to get to that high. But secondly, I think that the presumption here is that the highest of the highs will always measure up to the lowest of the low. Firstly, they never demonstrated an actual logical link as to why exactly you can't get great highs without actually having those great lows. I think a lot of rich people in the world feel great highs but don't really feel the lowest of the lows. But secondly, I think that the truth of the matter is that oftentimes these great highs can be incredibly detrimental to you as an individual as well. That is literally a bulk of the extension that was coming from Yan when he told you that the way that individuals, or like some individuals, make decisions is that they associate those highs and continually chase after them. So why then do we think that those highs are detrimental in themselves? Firstly, I think that even if those highs are high, they are incredibly fleeting and they are entirely circumstantial in a point at which you receive them. That means that they are already marred by the fear that you are going to lose that happiness in the future. But secondly, I think that they create huge debilitating effects at a point at which you think your entirety of your life needs to be spent chasing that high again. And this causes you to do the worst possible things to yourself so that you can one day again attain the high. The happiness of the highs you speak of become the cause of the sadness and pain that you later on achieve, not the reason for it. Next thing that I think was entirely problematic about the extension was this. What they told us is that there is there's somehow like an equitable distribution of sadness and happiness, and the two of them can be seen to be the same. I think that's entirely false. Firstly, I think that sadness is a really bad feeling that people find terrible ways to cope with. And the fact of the matter is that a lot of the times the way that we deal with sadness is a lot worse than the way that we deal with happiness, because sadness is inescapable. Pain is something that you can't mitigate on your own, and it's something that's inexorable in the sense that when, like what OG tells you, when you feel pain, you can't really run away from it. But why is that really bad? Because the way that people deal with pain is very different from the way people deal with happiness. Happiness is like a nice feeling to have, right? You're happy for a while, you go to sleep, tomorrow morning you wake up and you have to go to work. Again, that's pretty shitty. But when you are sad, and when that sadness lingers, people do a lot of things to try and escape from that particular kind of sadness, especially when it becomes debilitating. Think of people who self-harm, who are alcoholics, people who chase drugs to be able to attain some level of freedom from the pain that they feel. The fact of the matter is that you can't presume that everyone is going to be strong enough to deal with those pains on their own. I think that's incredibly presumptuous. And you also presume that they can reach those happiness that you speak of. I don't think those costs are in any world, as an individual, some kind of decision that you ought to be making simply because you can't guarantee it. But also, let's talk about this idea of morality and why exactly we think morality is much better on our side of the house. I think what comes from opening opposition and also extend on later in closing is this idea that firstly you need pain to motivate individuals to do something. Again, right, I think that's also very random and very bizarre, and some sort of an assertion, because you just seem to presume that people in general are good people and to imagine the suffering of other people in order to do to avoid the suffering for them. Why can't it be that I want to avoid suffering by taking things away from other people so I never have to feel that pain in the future? But also beyond that, I think that the comparison between the two modes of morality is really important in this debate, because as much as we can see some kind of morality that exists in the world right now, i.e. the morality of empathy, what we proposed to you was an imaginative different form of morality that we think was ultimately better. Firstly, we told you that one of the big problems with empathy in the real world is that it's incredibly subjective and incredibly assertive and presumptuous. No, thank you. I think that the point in which you're able to actually be able to weigh out what is the most important thing we need to deal with in the world right now, i.e. the things that create the largest amounts of this utility, that is when we create a form of morality that actually helps the people who are suffering from the largest amounts of these utilities in the world, to the extent to which certain causes in the world can use maybe largesse, or use pictures or images to try and convince you that they are the most important morality they have to feel, or try to take to the sense of your convenience on solving this kind of utility. Those emotions cloud the ability of individuals to actually make the most utile decision to solve the problem. In a world in which objective morality is true, not just can we better target the people that need to be helped, but I think individuals who suffer from this utility because they they don't feel the immediate pressure of the pain right now are more likely to be able to like leave their issue for now, solve the more important issue, and then come back to that issue later on. Yeah.
So if we trivialize sadness, who will ever have the incentive to attempt to escape sadness absent of the availability of opting out of pain?
Who will ever have the incentive to escape? But you don't feel sadness, you like, it's a world without pain. I mean, if you're saying that sadness is a really powerful motivator, like I just don't understand why it's any more of a powerful motivator than like chasing happiness, to the extent to which it might be a very powerful motivator. Like literally that was the other set of our extensions, right? We told you about the second group of people, which is the group of people who like look at sadness and they just get consumed by it. They are incapable of doing anything as a result of it. See, i.e. depressive people, for example, who literally have difficulties getting out of bed every day because they feel as if the sadness is so overwhelming that they can't do anything about it. The idea that you have to keep trying and trying and trying to get that happiness is oftentimes what causes people to keep going into that circles. Like, so there are two types of people. The first type is that the ones who keep trying and keep failing and getting more pain. And the second group of people are the people who are literally shut down by that sadness. You don't do anything about either of these groups of people. You said they're subjective, like accomplishments that you can get along the way. Like that's literally our model, where like you only feel happiness, so you can feel the happiness of giving your speech, but you don't feel the debilitating sadness of not getting the kind of outcomes that you want. The last argument that we gave that CEO never responded to was that this creates massive harms on the part of the individual, and it's a strong reason why individuals ought to opt for the lack of pain. The idea that oftentimes the worst kind of hurt that can be visited upon an individual is the idea that you learn to hate the parts of yourself that feel pain. So for example, when people compartmentalize things like rape, things like war from parts of their psyche, you don't get the kind of outcomes you're talking about where you become a better person, but you get a person that literally hates and cannot identify the parts of themselves that are immensely crucial. So people start to compartmentalize and cut away essential aspects of themselves, look themselves in the mirror and not be able to recognize who they are because there are parts of themselves that bring them pain and they don't want to acknowledge the fact that this is actually who they are. We think that's immensely problematic because it inhibits your ability to live a full life as a human being, which is to say that right now you're only half a person because you're only willing to engage the parts of yourself that causes happiness. But at the end of the day, you still have to live with the parts of yourself that are the worst parts of yourself. You feel a continual sense of pain, and we think that as an individual, the outcomes of like fleeting moments of happiness, no matter how high they might be, can never actually outweigh the potential risk that this will happen to you. We're very happy to propose.
Speakers spoke for 7 minutes and 24 seconds. I thank the government whip speaker.
Yes, sir. Cherry-picking instances in which evading suffering is difficult is not going to justify the eradication of suffering as a whole. We say that this debate is not only about whether evading pain or happiness is good or not, it's also about fundamentally what we as human beings should choose to maintain our humanity. We say that the comparative is this. They say evading suffering is the goal of humanity. We say maximizing happiness qualitatively and the extent and the spectrum of your sensation itself is what is humanity. Furthermore, so the metric is, first of all, what is unique? Because when they talk about how suffering is difficult, we don't think that they've adequately responded to any of the responses that OO already gave you. The fact of the matter is, for those limited stakeholders who are consumed by sadness like depression or proneness or drug addiction, exactly because of our ability to feel pain and thereby our following empathy of other people's pain, that's exactly why we have systematic methods, things like donations, psychiatrists, and systematic helps for those people in damnation or people in suffering to begin with. We don't think that is a unique harm by any means. But on the flip side, we say that team government fundamentally murders your spectrum of sensation and the quality or the extent of the quality of your life that you can achieve at the end of the day. We think it's less about like future calculations or making collective movements, but also about you as an individual, the extent of your life, and also your appreciation of your own experiences, Mr. Speaker. We believe it is human to overcome things. We think that it is beautiful and we glorify happiness exactly because it is difficult to achieve. We celebrate people like Oprah Winfrey when they come up to TV and talk about their experiences of being raped at 13, but we celebrate and glorify and are ecstatic by those experiences because we understand how difficult it is to overcome, but they still overcame it, and that's why we feel happiness and humanity. We don't think that the difficulty to overcome is a justification to eradicate pain. Two themes that would properly frame this debate: happiness, and secondly, progress of humanity. Number one, about happiness. My partner uniquely told you why happiness essentially depends upon pain. We told you why all satisfaction is essentially relative. In other words, we think that they vastly limit the spectrum of your sensation. In other words, if I have an experienced spectrum of my life of feeling like shit to feeling like 100, I'm able to appreciate relatively how much better I got off and how much better I feel. But if it's fundamentally limited to, for instance, like 70 to 100, we think that people will become essentially more stoic and essentially less appreciative of the experiences or the happinesses that they garner. In other words, their fundamental stance or their spectrum of sensation under their paradigm is being alright to being awesome. So we think that this is harmful in two impacts. Number one, it deters or actually murders real motivation, right? Because we don't think that being alright and just because you have a bonus cherry on top motivates you enough to do those humanistic things of progress to begin with. But secondly, we think that it's not only about future action, as I've said, it's also about hindsight, appreciating and internalizing your experience. We think that this happiness of humanity is less about the experience itself that you go through, but how you internalize this experience and how you appreciate this experience and feel about it. That's exactly why my partner's point about how the process itself and appreciating the process of overcoming pain and becoming happy is immensely important to one's self-actualization. For instance, because I understand and in hindsight, I appreciate my months of pain and practice I went through in the court, that's why I appreciate and feel truly happy for my touchdown in a football game. Because I understand and appreciate the pain I went through when I was lonely and single, that's why I feel the ecstasy when I finally get a girlfriend, although I don't have one right now. We think that essentially humanity finds ecstasy in the process in overcoming things, and that's why them diminishing that process fundamentally hinders people from being truly happy. As Kurt Cobain say, I miss the comfort in being sad. That's why fundamentally on an individual happiness level, we feel that their limiting of happiness and the quality of life itself is going against humanity, it's going against self-actualization. On the other hand, their harms, like some people being depressed, some people being sad, and some people finding it hard to overcome, are much more better solved under our paradigm. Because the thing is, if we look at a comparative level, even under their model where they leave it to individual choice, not all people will choose to eradicate pain. Some people will still be suffering, some people will still have their own discriminations or whatnot. In that case, it's much more difficult for people who feel numb and only happy to empathize with other people's pain and reach out for help to do things like donations or hospitals or whatnot. Thereby, even for those sad people, we help them better. Secondly, let's talk about progress. OG comes up here and talks about, how intellectual progress is important and you need to be enlightened or whatever that means. Well, we already told you why Big Boy Socrates' concept of aporia, the pain of not knowing, is enough and in fact a bigger motivation for you to learn better. But secondly, most importantly, about the process of decision making, right? My partner uniquely told you, on number one, on the decision making on a moral level, we feel that shame and punishment are fundamentally necessary for people to make moral decisions and to have social order to begin with, something that was essentially dropped by CG. We feel that when DPM comes up here and says the sadistic big sister is gonna break her little sister's toy, first of all, I think that's not motivated by pain, but motivated by pleasure and jealousy. But the more important thing is, on a comparative level, in a world with only joy, as they say, even if people do take other people's toys, they're not going to feel the pain or the harm that they implicate on other people. Thereby, third-party harm will be having no moral sense of guiltiness, Mr. Speaker. That's exactly why we feel it is necessary for other people, to empathize with other people's pain, but also feel the fear of punishment, feel the fear of shame, so that they can make moral decisions that respect other actors in society. On a societal level, we think that we've been the only one thinking about those third-party actors. But secondly, not only about morality, but on making efficient and smart decisions as a society. We think that the pain of inefficiency is fundamentally necessary for true innovation and progress to happen. Note and the premise that the world itself that we live in a world where resources are limited and ultimately satisfaction is also limited. That's why we feel on a first level efficiency matters. Things like making more efficient cars, not doing things like warfare because we know the pain of the past and history of those inefficient decisions. We make better decisions. But also we told you why innovation is hindered under them. The government member says how sadness or pain is a bad motivator. That may be true, but it's the most efficient and powerful motivator because things like competition and pain motivate you much more efficiently. Because we believe humanity lives to maximize happiness and self-actualization on a qualitative level, that's why CO takes this debate home.